Greetings, friends. So here, President Trump is delivering some remarks at the White House on October 10th, a few days ago. And this is near the end of his short speech. He made some remarks on the idea of lockdowns. And this is what he had to say.
Disputed. So we are now beginning the fastest economic recovery in history. We created a record 11.4 million jobs just in the last 4 months. That's the fastest ever. The U.S. has seen the smallest economic contraction of any major nation anywhere in the world. So we've seen the smallest going down. If you look at it, that's an incredible statement. Our opponents will crush the comeback with unscientific lockdowns. They want to lock everything down. Here we go again. They want to lock it down. Now, we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let it happen. So important you get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. So we got to...
There you have it. He called the lockdowns unscientific. He said, no, we can't be having that. We can't be having that. Biden's team is going to do that. So there's an upbeat, defiant message. Is Trump sincere? Who am I to say? I mean, he's defying the Korona cult here, the Korunka cult. He's defying it. Now, you can say maybe he paid homage to the cult himself in some ways, and that's probably true. However, on the face of it, is this a good message? Yes, this is a good message. Any message that resonates with truth, for me, is a good message. So there you have Trump, which I think is, that's a positive, optimistic take, and it's building on his tweet, which he released not long after he got out of the hospital. He said a few things, but the things that stood out were, he said, do not be afraid of COVID. Do not let it dominate your life. And of course, if you don't know, he was diagnosed positive with it. He did have some minor symptoms, but he got over it within a few days. And yes, he received exceptional treatment. Any president of the United States would receive exceptional treatment. I wouldn't hold it. I don't believe anecdotes prove any general trend. But it's the other side. It's the media. It's the fear-mongerers, the people who still believe in everything that they're being told. They were the ones pointing out to Trump being sick as an example of how bad the virus is. And then obviously that didn't happen. And do we hear anything about his staffers, Melania Trump, how sick they are? Are they hospitalized? I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything? So anyways, that's just... So there we have a more positive and refreshing take. This is like, I'm pretty black-pilled, but this is, at least finally we're getting to talk about what is science again. Take that narrative back. Don't surrender it to them and their scientism cult. So by contrast, we have Doug Ford, who is the Premier of Ontario, and which is my province. By the way, there are almost 15 million, about 14.5 million people live in the province of Ontario in Canada. And here we have Premier Ford, who is the brother of the deceased Rob Ford, former mayor of Toronto, who was a real populist. And so now Doug is a bit different from his brother, but he's always looking quite uncomfortable under the cameras ever since this whole pandemic thing got started. But I don't have any sympathy for him. But let's listen. He's responding to an interesting question here. He responds to theories that claim the pandemic is a hoax. Now, let me just say, I don't think it's productive for our side to say that it's a hoax, even though you can argue it's a hoax based on everything the way it's been spun, the way it's been taken advantage of. I mean, you may say the virus doesn't exist because it was never isolated. I don't know, that's true. But if you want to get the message across to the normies, it's better to say overhyped, taken advantage of, blown out of proportion, and talk about loss of our freedoms, talk about all that other stuff. I don't know, it can help the other side for them to focus on the word hoax. So that's not always helping us. But anyways, having said that, let's listen to what Premier Ford has to say.
Yes.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Graham Richardson with CTV Ottawa. Please go ahead.
Hi, how you doing?
Premier, you may not be surprised by this. I'm certainly not, but I just wanted to get your comments. I keep getting back a lot of people saying this whole thing is fake. This is a hoax.
Yeah.
The health officials and the politicians and the media are lying to people for a variety of reasons. Do you want to say anything about that right now?
Sure.
Hoax, fake, that the politicians and the media are lying to people for a variety of reasons? What an outlandish thing to say, that the establishment is lying to the public for a variety of reasons. Totally outlandish thing to say. Would you care to respond to such a silly thing to say?
Because a lot of people believe what they see online, and it's patently false, but it's out there and it seems to be growing in the second wave.
You know, so I'm gonna start off with, we have the anti-maskers showing up to my house again, you know, flying the flag upside down, and that's disturbing to see.
Which is a sign of distress. It's not a sign of that you hate the country. It's a sign that you care for the country. You're trying to show that the country is in grave danger. The fact that you even own a Canadian flag in the first place, and then that you're willing to fly it upside down as a statement for help.
At least you don't like our country. You want to disrespect the people.
No, so he's that's a sly, sleazy tactic. I mean, he tried the same tactic way back in April. He's saying, doesn't he have any new comebacks? It's the same thing he said back in April when the protests against the lockdowns first started.
Country and the flag, get going, take off, leave. Find another place you can fly your flag upside down. For the media.
Well, they do want to get rid of us. They do actually want to physically remove us in the future. That's not so outlandish to consider.
In the government, I'll tell you, the media has been phenomenal. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to get.
Wow, the media has been phenomenal. Can someone please cut that and make it into an edited music video? The media is being phenomenal, coming right from Premier Ford, coming right from Porky, and notice he's flanked by Ninja Aladdin and Kimberly Pink Power Ranger.
Our message out. They've bent over backwards. They've been out there every single day from the beginning. Part of the Team Ontario approach by making sure people are getting the message and following the guidance and the protocols. So the media, you guys are absolute champions.
Doug, how stupid politically can you be? Like, I mean, you've thrown your cards and you've cast your lots and you've decided, I'm going to go with the establishment. I'm going to go with the media, the big corporations. Okay, fine, but is it even smart for you to say that they're great? Shouldn't you just be a bit more quiet about it? Or, I mean, saying that they're done such a bang-on job, do you really think that's a message? I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people love the media. So I could be wrong. Maybe he knows that so many people they actually love the media. And that may be true for a lot of people. So I could be wrong there, but to me it just sounds like such an odd that you're actually going to just put that out in the open, that you think that the corporate media is so great, because that's who we're talking about. Who are we talking about? I'll come back to it, but we're talking about a small number of companies. Here we are. This is courtesy of my friend who has a website, and this website portrays information about mass media, the corporate media. So and this is how it breaks down in Canada, I believe. This is in America, it's Comcast, Disney, Time Warner, 21st Century Fox, CBS, Viacom, and then all their subsidiaries and all their other holdings. It gets kind of complicated, but basically those are all controlled by those 5 or 6 corporations. In Canada, it breaks down between, 3 or 4 big players and then a number of smaller ones, but it's all a very small number of people controlling the media. Rogers, Bell Media, this chunk, this blue chunk here, Torstar, Google, Kojiko, CBC. I'm pretty sure that even these small chunks here are probably owned by even a smaller number of people. TELUS, CanWest. So the media is just a small number of corporations, and they got $500 and almost $600 million from the Canadian taxpayers in 2018 from the Justin Trudeau government. And then, of course, they have to decide who exactly it's going to. Do you think it's going to anyone like InfoWars? Do you think it's going to anyone like Stefan Molyneux? No, it's not. It's going to the CBC, which is already a publicly funded organization. It's going to all these other big players, CTV, Global News. So, in a sense, the media is just state media, or the state is working for the media, or they're both working for the financial organizations. It doesn't matter. They're all pigs. They're all Porky the Pig. 2,
elected officials. You're talking the premier. There's no hidden agenda. Not from me, not from any of my ministers, no one. It's sheer facts. What I get.
Okay, no hidden agenda. Can you elaborate on that, Dougie boy? Why? Why would you say that?
I'm the chief medical officer.
You have facts? What are your facts?
We'll put it right on the table. Good, bad, or ugly.
What are you putting on the table? What is the good? What is the ugly? What are you putting on the table, Doug?
And the people that are saying this, I don't even know where they're getting this from.
What do you mean you don't know where we're getting? We're going straight. We don't even need to go too far into conspiracy land. We can just look at the straight up data from the horse's mouth, from the official data. We can look at that. 99.99% recovery rate. CDC, WHO figures. Even the WHO is now saying that you shouldn't do lockdowns. They don't recommend lockdowns anymore. Where are you, Dougie boy? Hey, Doug, you praised President Trump when you were running for office, for premier. You liked what Trump, you said you tried to capitalize on the Trump wave. Well, now what do you say about what Trump is saying? Now you want to distance yourself from President Trump, or you were just an opportunist all along, Doug? Porky, you're a coward, Doug. You're fake and you're a coward. You're nothing like President Trump. Maybe President Trump is compromised to some degree, but at least he's defiant. He stands up for the people sometimes. And you're not your brother, eh, Doug? You're not Rob. Rob was a real populist. I don't know how far Rob would have fallen to the pressure when all this people were, telling him to shut everything down, but he would have put up more of a fight than you did, I can tell you that.
As real as I'm standing here, you can be a denier, you can be an anti-masker, you can do whatever. This is a democratic country. You can say what you want. But I'm just coming up here and telling you what I know through the facts of the chief medical officer.
Oh, okay, yeah, the chief medical officer, one person. And the facts, which you still haven't told us yet, that are supposedly making your case, what are they?
I can assure you, our medical team, it's not one person or two or five. It's probably 100 or 200 throwing their advice in. And then Dr. Williams, Dr. Brown, Dr. Yaffe, Dr. Dirk, they all come up and they deliver the message too.
And what are they telling you? What are they saying?
I'm going to repeat this again. There is no agenda. I'm the last guy in the world that would.
Now, I don't think the premier has been very open with how he makes his medical decisions. He's just said it comes from the experts. I mean, perhaps I haven't covered this so far, but I know back in the summer people were calling him out on this. Like show us the actual experts and what studies do they actually base their decisions on? Like how do they, what is the scientific process they go through? Even like a basic rundown of how do you come to these decisions? How do you justify these decisions? And they never did it. They never provided any explanation, any elaboration of how they're making these decisions. So now he's talking about, he's name dropping some authority figures and saying, well, I'm close with these authority figures. That's your argument? That's your case, Doug, for why you're destroying our economy and psychologically abusing children, adults, elderly?
Put up with that. It just wouldn't happen under my watch. I'm here to protect the people of Ontario, keep them safe. I'm going to
That's bull, obviously.
protect your families. I'm going to protect your kids at all cost. At all cost. I don't care.
Yeah, at all costs. Yeah. Yeah, that's real. At all costs. And bring in the new world at all costs.
What it costs to protect the people of this province. I'll break down a brick wall for anyone in this province to protect them. And that's what we're going to continue doing.
Yeah, you'll break down a lot of businesses that you were supposedly for. You were supposedly for business. Now you're presiding over economic destruction. Now they just went into another phase of lockdown. It's not quite as bad as the first one, but they've still, like, basically restaurants can barely have anyone in anymore. And, you know, you can't have any gathering of more than 10 people or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you have to ignore these people. You have to ignore these people. In the very best scenario, they're complete incompetents. They're complete buffoons. And I like to think that maybe Doug is just a buffoon. He's just really incompetent. But the more likely scenario is that these people are willingly going along with what you may call a conspiracy. Why? Because they didn't explain anything here. They didn't give any reasons to respond to that very claim. And at least showing that you're not being influenced by other people, you would give honest answers. You would try to build a case. The fact that you use evasive tactics is not going to make you look good in any legal proceeding, which you are being sued, Doug. You are being sued, and you will be sued. So just to conclude, how is the Korona situation in Canada? Well, back in the beginning of the summer, it was already around 9,000 deaths. And I don't believe this figure of 9,000. It's probably 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 max, I'd say. Because most of these are elderly people. We never really know, because they don't really say. Look at all these cases, mostly meaningless, irrelevant cases. That's why they call it a case-demic now. They bait and switch. They gaslight you. First they said a few weeks to flatten the curve. Then they still talked about deaths. Well, there's still deaths rising. Then they stopped. By the time the summer came around, they stopped talking about deaths. They start talking about cases. Why? Because they test people. Because they test people, you're going to get positive cases. There's about 37 million people in Canada, I think. Maybe it's more. So you're going to get a lot of cases. It's a very infectious, mild disease. It can be serious in some isolated cases, but it only affects a small segment of the population, statistically speaking, in a very serious way. Those are mostly people above the age of 70 with 2 or 3 co-morbidities, serious health problems. And then this thing finishes you off. And it can be miscounted, and they can count you as dying. These deaths include a lot of people, mostly people who died from other things. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that this really did kill 9,654 people as of October 13th, 2020. Okay, well, let's just, for the sake of argument. Now, here we have a graph here showing you the cases. Let me zoom in on this. You can see the cases were high up around April, May. Here it peaked. Again, I don't know why they calculate something. Some days are so high like that, but yeah, you see it peaked on May 3rd, 2,760 cases added to the overall count. And then, it's coming up again. It's the famous second wave. Look at that. But then just scroll down, and this is Worldometers, by the way. This is an official source, as far as I know. Oh, look at daily deaths. Oh, look at that. Well, what do you know? Oops, what did I... Yeah, so you can see the daily deaths are... 90 deaths. Okay. So the deaths are not matching at all the cases. That's why it's a case-demic. And this is why people not lose their cool, but at this point, most people would just say it's fake, it's a hoax. But unfortunately, the normies, when they hear fake hoax, they see this and they say, you can't say fake hoax. It's a real thing. So it's just safer to talk to the normies and say it's overhyped. There is probably some virus out there. Maybe, if it wasn't isolated or not, let's just, for the sake of, it's better to just assume there is. Then you can convert more normies and say, look, fine, there's a virus out there. How many people has it actually killed? And even if you went back to these original numbers, these original deaths, How many people is that even dying compared to a regular flu season, a regular disease season? Like, you know that a lot of otherwise influenza deaths are getting counted in this figure anyways. How much does it even stand above statistically what would be normal for that time of the year? Not by much. Not by much at all. So we have this article here, just underneath the blurb of Porky there. Ontario is reporting 1,553 new COVID cases over the last 2 days. 807 infections logged, but not released on the Thanksgiving holiday Monday, and because Canada has Thanksgiving early. So then they said, another 12 deaths related to the disease, with at least 7 of them categorized as long-term care residents. So it's always difficult to find out exactly what are the ages of these people, what are their health conditions. They don't like to just publicize this in too much detail. And then it says the majority of people, those who have died after contracting the novel virus, are people over the age of 80. Over the age of 80! With 2,077 deaths recorded in total since the beginning of March. I'm not sure if that's Ontario alone. 11 others were between 20 and 39 years old, while 125 were between 40 and 59. Okay, so they're trying to play up that younger people also die from it, which it's possible and it does happen. But I'd like to know what were their health conditions. But it's not, but even these numbers are just very, very minuscule in comparison to the almost 15 million people in Ontario. Most of the cases in the last day were people between 20 and 60. Yeah, because probably most of the elderly people have already been tested who are going to get tested, and now they're just like the millennials who are super scared, and everyone else, they're being shuffled along and prodded into getting their test, which is a humiliating thing to be tested. I don't want to, like, I had a bit of a cold a week and a half ago. Who knows? I could have had the runka. I could have had it. Do I get tested for it? Absolutely not. Why would I let them demean me by sticking that prod way up my nose, and then I'm in their database, and if I happen to be unlucky enough to test positive, even if that's relatively meaningless, now I'm in their database, now they have a file on me, now they want to follow up with me, they want to contact trace me. When they soon have their quarantine facilities, their list of who tested positive will be useful for them. Do I want to help them in that endeavor? Absolutely not. There are currently 230 people being treated for COVID-19 in Ontario hospitals. Of those patients, 60 are in the ICU and 34 are breathing with a ventilator. 230 people sick sufficiently with this virus to be hospitalized in a population of 15 million. What does that tell you? That tells you that if you can't see anything there, then I can't help you. It tells you that this is very insignificant, statistically speaking. And I want to know, are there more people in Ontario who are currently hospitalized with some other infectious disease? I'd really like to know. Influenza, or just any other infectious disease. I'm saying infectious disease because that's more of a tight bet. I could make it an easier bet and just say, how many people are hospitalized in Ontario with cancer or heart disease right now, or car accidents? But those things aren't infectious, so you're not allowed to talk about them. Right, okay. So it's human lives we're concerned about human lives? Now we're concerned only with a specific kind of thing that infects people that, 99.9% of everyone recovers from. Now that's supposedly about lives. Yeah, this is how they gaslight you. So, in conclusion, the last thing is I saw this funny article. The TTC, which is the Toronto Transit Commission, that's like our, the semi-public, semi-private agency which runs all of our streetcars and subway trains and buses. So they tell riders that social distancing will no longer be possible on vehicles. A rider concerned about physical distancing on a packed bus has been told by the agency that staying 2 meters apart is no longer possible on their vehicles. And we can see this picture here of This was supposedly posted to Twitter on October 13th. Oh, what do you know? A crowded bus. That's kind of how they are. The woman shared in her tweet and asked, curious as to how we're supposed to social distance here. In response, they said, the TDC says, as the city reopens, social distancing will no longer be possible on our vehicles. As such, if you feel that a vehicle you are on is overcrowded, I would suggest getting off and boarding the next one. Apologies for the inconvenience. They've been telling customers that since June. So that's basically it. This lady is complaining about it, and she should just get over it. Like, I've heard that the TTC cut some of their route, like the number of buses on certain routes, so that's not going to make things easier. So I can understand how people would get impatient with that. But get over it. Get over it. This lady, this white lady, probably a millennial. She's probably a millennial. She's complaining about this. Get over it. And now it's coming from the big institutions because they know this thing is stupid and it doesn't work. Hasta luego, amigos.